Welcome, everybody, to our fireside chat. We have a very special guest here today, Vitalik Buterin, and he and I were just catching up. We've known each other for a little while. So Coinbase started back in 2012, and I remember we were reading lots of Bitcoin magazine at that time, and I remember reading some articles written by this guy named Vitalik, and I think thought his writing was excellent. And in 2013, we actually met for the first time at the Bitcoin conference in San Jose, California. And I think shortly thereafter, Vitalik I remember he was thinking about moving to the US or coming to San Francisco or something like that, but I guess he couldn't get a work visa. While he was kind of stranded in Canada, he decided to create Ethereum. So in like a weird way, the immigration policy of the United States led to the creation of Ethereum. Vitalik is born in Russia, moved to Canada when he was age 6, and eventually went on to co-found Ethereum, and he's been one of the most prolific and influential voices in crypto. So Vitalik, thank you for being here. We're glad to have you.
Thank you for inviting me, Brian. It's good to be here.
Awesome. So, to get started, maybe you can give people just a little bit of a lay of the land of what's the current state of the Ethereum Foundation, and how have you set it up over time and your role? And then, maybe once we get through that, we can get into a little bit about some of the more recent developments with ETH2 and Serenity.
Sure. So the Ethereum Foundation was originally created in the middle of 2014. So at the time, we were somewhere around 20 or 30 different, basically core developers that were just working on trying to make the original Ethereum protocol happen. And there were a lot of people in Europe, like Berlin was a major center at the time, a lot of developers there, some people in London, some people in the US, and a lot of different places. And so at the beginning, it was basically just this kind of collection of legal entities in a couple of countries, the main one in Switzerland, and just trying to pay developers and make the Ethereum protocol happen. I think since then, it's definitely expanded a lot. So around the beginning of 2018, we started and announced this big grant program. And we really try to expand into, not just kind of paying core developers ourselves, but also just supporting all of these different independent projects in the community. And since then, the grant program actually spends more money than the foundation does on kind of paying its own people, which I think in part is a kind of deliberate choice to encourage a more kind of distributed and diverse ecosystem. One of the big recipients of that is just all these different independent teams that are building Ethereum 2 clients. So Prismatic, Lighthouse, and Nimbus are three of the biggest ones. Also, some Layer 2 projects, some Ethereum developer experience things, Ethereum community things, security related things, and this kind of big long list. And I think it's just a kind of remit is just support things that are good for the Ethereum ecosystem and support things that are good for making the Ethereum ecosystem good for the world. And so whatever fits into that, the foundation is kind of happy to do. So our executive director, kind of Ayemi Aguchi, she is definitely kind of a bit behind the scenes more than some of our core developers, but she and Josh, Sina, and Bastian, and Albert, many of our other kind of ops staff have been doing a very good job of just making that happen and kind of managing this transition where we changed from this kind of small entity that we were back when Ethereum started to this kind of big sprawling thing that's managing a huge amount of relationships and resources. So that's basically where the foundation is. It's a very globally distributed organization. We have major bases in, I guess, Switzerland, Singapore, Taipei, Berlin, Denver, San Francisco. And sometimes that just means there's a couple of people there. Sometimes it means there's a small office, and sometimes people go there. Sometimes people don't. And otherwise, it's basically as global as Ethereum is. That's who we are.
Awesome. And so those people you're referring to, they're employees of the Ethereum Foundation. who are helping. Do I understand it correctly that the foundation really is defining the spec, the protocol, and then they're also a grant-making organization to those various teams that you mentioned that are implementing the spec and building node software? Is that right?
And I could kind of quickly go through the list actually of just what the
Yeah.
Ethereum Foundation funds directly and what it funds with grants. So directly, there is obviously just operations of the Ethereum Foundation itself. Then there is DevCon, our annual conference. There is the research team. So that's mainly the team building the Ethereum 2 specs. It used to be the team building Ethereum 1 specs until that process kind of distributed a lot over the last couple of years. There's the people building Solidity. Also, there's a lot of just smaller different projects. So like, for example, we have a Python team that's been working on the Ethereum Python implementation. There's just a lot of different teams working on different individual projects. Geth is definitely a really big and important one. And then as far as what we do with grants, the Ethereum 2 clients, so I mentioned Prism from Prismatic, Lighthouse from Sigma Prime, and Nimbus from the Status team, those all receive a combination of support from the Ethereum Foundation and support from other organizations in the Ethereum ecosystem. There is a lot of Layer 2 projects have received grants of different sizes from the Ethereum Foundation, especially early on. Some applications, and even like Uniswap started with a grant, actually, and then gets turned into this really big thing. Academic grants, so we gave quite a bit to the Center for Blockchain Research in Stanford. I gave quite a bit to IC3. Also gave quite a bit to Starkware to work on some Stark-related tech that we might end up using at some point. And after that, there's just this really big long tail.
Makes sense. That's awesome. Well, it certainly has sparked a pretty incredible ecosystem of different projects, and we can get into DeFi and all those things in a little bit. But maybe I think I'll ask a question that's on a lot of people's minds, which is how are things progressing towards Ethereum 2 and Serenity? And maybe you can give us a timely update for the community on how you feel it's going, and yeah, what should we know?
Sure. So Ethereum 2 is this big, sprawling effort to mainly make two upgrades to Ethereum. One of them is switching the consensus from proof of work to proof of stake, which we believe to be much more energy efficient, much less tree killing, require much less issuance and all of those things, and at the same time more secure than proof of work. So this is actually something I wrote a blog post about, like one of the most recent ones on Vitalik.ca talks about this. And the other big piece is sharding, which is a scalability upgrade. That basically means that you don't need every node to process every transaction anymore. You kind of split up the load much more, and this way we could increase the blockchain's throughput from around 15 transactions a second to many thousands or tens of thousands of transactions per second. So the Ethereum 2 roadmap is split into different stages or parts. Again, we at the beginning called them phases. I think recently we've been de-emphasizing the phase branding a bit because it's becoming kind of more parallelized, and all the pieces are being built in a kind of, they can be implemented when they're ready, regardless of what the other pieces are doing kind of format. But the very first phase 0, this is the launch of the proof of stake beacon chain, basically just a proof of stake chain, just maintaining consensus on itself, running kind of independently from, but hooking into the ETH1 blockchain. This is something that, from a technical perspective is basically just completely ready, and it is out there, right? Like the thing that it's waiting for is that right now there is this contract on the Ethereum blockchain called a deposit contract, where people can send in 32 ETH in order to become Ethereum validators, and basically as a once the amount of people, or once the amount of ETH in the contract reaches about 524,000, then the beacon chain kind of officially kicks off, right? So right now, I think it's at about 100,000, and it's basically just